Hello, hello.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Alicia.
And this is Burden No Proof. Welcome back.
Welcome, new listeners.
Hello to our newbies. Hello to our longtime friends.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here today.
I know, this is different for us.
This is different, but it's needed in my heart, I think.
Okay.
So we talked about it on our live stream. So if you aren't on Patreon, you didn't see our live stream. If you are on Patreon and you didn't see the live stream, you can go watch it. It's on there now for you, recorded. We talked a little bit on live stream about how we were just kind of burnt out. You know, we're coming up on 100 episodes soon, which is crazy.
Yes.
And it's a lot of true crime all the time for us. So I decided that I needed to go back to my true crime roots and find something that I really loved to do. And this is one of the very first like true crimey things that I was ever sucked into when I first got into this genre.
Okay. I know you're a fan of all things culty.
I am fascinated by cults.
I believe that there should be more about it in true crime, but unfortunately, to my knowledge, they don't often get any sort of charges against them or prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, if they do, it's typically for like financial crimes related to the cult. It's not for the actual thing itself, because unfortunately, like, they're consenting adults. They're just in like abusive situations.
Yep.
The thing about this cult, though, is that's not really the case. Like, these people weren't necessarily being manipulated. I mean, they were because of the way that cults generally run, but it's more like a toxic relationship than it is like an intentional manipulation. There's a lot of real true belief in today's cult.
Oh.
It's fascinating.
Okay.
The people who have left this cult still talk about it like it was a good time in their life. I don't mean they're like, oh my gosh, that was the best time of my life ever, but they're very respectful towards their time there and the people that they were with, and like, it's interesting. Yeah. So today, if you haven't read the title, we're talking about the Heaven's Gate cult, and this is part 1.
Okay.
And I do apologize for all of our legal beagles because there's not really a whole lot. I'm going to throw in some statistics in part 2 about cults and their prosecution rates and fun stuff about that. But other than that, this is for our enjoyment, and it's for your enjoyment, and I hope you're ready to talk about some aliens.
Oh, no. Okay. I am as ready as I will ever be to talk about aliens.
Yes. Okay, so shout out to Sally, by the way, who correctly guessed what the episode was going to be about based on the tidbit from last episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the only one who guessed, but you're the only one who said anything, so you get the shout out.
Nice.
So, and for those of you who have never heard of Heaven's Gate, we're talking about aliens, uniforms, castration, and mass suicide. So,
okay.
Yep.
Cults freak me out.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, no, not like on the level like you start having nightmares and stuff about them.
I do.
I don't get like freaked out like that. I just struggle. The stories just frustrate me. And, you know, because like you said, it's consenting adults, but it's so like, how do you not see it?
I know. Well, I have a whole section on why I think this one was so, like, the longevity of this was so long, because it takes place over 20 years.
Oh my God.
So it's a long running one. So
yeah. Okay.
We're going to open up with Marshall Applewhite, whose friends called him Herff, who would become Doe. Herff is his middle name. I don't know where they came from. Herff.
Like Herf?
2 Fs. Herff.
I've never heard.
Neither have I.
What?
And he's going to become Doe, and that's the most common way that I'll refer to him is Doe.
Doe as in like cookie dough, or
No.
doe as in like a deer?
Doe as in a deer.
Female deer.
Yes, you are right on the money. Ding, ding, ding. That is exactly how they got their names. They loved the sound of music.
Oh, no. That's going to ruin the sound of music.
No, I don't think it will. I don't think it will.
It better not.
No. And like normally you said I do have nightmares about cults. I do, but this time it was just like weird dreams. So
yeah.
You'll see.
Okay.
So Herff, by his friends, was a great student throughout his life and was always obsessed with sci-fi. For example, after one UFO sighting, like generally in his area, I don't know if it was like super close or a couple states away or something, but he called the police department and asked for more information. And they were like, no, don't waste our time and resources. Like, no. And they ended up putting him on a watch list because of it.
I mean,
kind of weird.
It makes sense that they'd put him on.
Yeah. Like, why? No.
Why, you weirdo?
But he graduated college graduated high school, and he began to follow in his father's footsteps. His father was a Presbyterian minister, so he began attending seminary, but he only stayed for about 5 months before he dropped out. He ended up getting married and starting a family and was a college music professor, and he taught choir, I'm pretty sure. Singing in general, but mostly choir. After a while of working at his college, though, he was fired after it came out that he was having an affair with a male student. This begins the process for his divorce. He'd been married for like between 5 and 10 years at this point. And so they moved to the University of Alabama, where he continued to teach choir and singing until he was also let go for similar rumors. This one has not been corroborated. Like, we can't guarantee that that's exactly what happened, that it happened again. But a lot of people think he was fired simply for the rumor that he was gay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Roll Tide. But either way, that's where he was. And so, and again, he wasn't gay. He was bisexual. He has confirmed that later in his life and at this point even. But he left the University of Alabama and he moved to Houston. And the story goes that after he left to go to Houston, he was working on an opera at the Houston Opera House where he was playing the male lead in Susanna. And it was during rehearsals that he had a complete psychiatric breakdown. And he basically checked himself into a mental hospital. But it was just through the hospital. It was like the the psych ward of the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was here where he met Bonnie Lou Nettles.
Bonnie Lou. These names are fantastic.
It is the very early 70s, so
in the South, right?
In the South, yeah. I also want to clarify that story of him breaking down in rehearsals, that's just kind of a rumor. We don't know for sure. All we do know is that he was in the hospital for some sort of mental health issue.
Okay.
But that is the general story that gets told. It's what I've heard for years. Is that how it happened? Because of the storyline in Susanna really matches up with he and Bonnie Lou, because Susanna, he falls for a nurse. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
Okay. It doesn't matter what the story is. All that's playing in my head is Toto, Susanna, the song. Nobody wants to hear me sing, though.
I want to.
No.
Okay. Maybe later. Bonnie and Herff clicked immediately. It was like they had known each other their whole lives, just took right to each other. And she took the time to read his astrological chart, where they learned that not only were they destined to find each other, but that they had known each other in a past life. In this reincarnation, though, they were destined to work together on a big project, some large mission that they didn't know or understand yet.
They got all that from an astrological chart, like the one that you read for me on the live?
Yeah, now you're seeing why I read it. Yeah, you can get a lot from astrological charts if you know how to read them. Like, if you can compare a moving chart, like a time-based chart, with somebody else's, you can really, line it up. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
So who was Bonnie Lou Nettles? The answer is we don't really know that much about her before she met Herff. What we do know is that she was a labor and delivery nurse, or a baby nurse is what her daughter calls her, and that she was really into metaphysical religions, and she tended to kind of hop back and forth, but astrology, anything sort of spiritual, metaphysical, really took her in.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, this resulted in her getting a divorce from her first husband because her only husband, because he was not okay with it. He was like, no, I'm not down. So they divorced. She did have a daughter named Terry, who she was really close with. Terry was a candy striper at the hospital that she worked at, and the two would spend their days talking all about the New Age spiritualism, and they were really, they bonded over that, and Terry said that she was one of her best friends.
Okay.
And then she meets Herff, and she goes off into the sunset, leaving Terry behind.
Oh.
Bye-bye, Terry.
Wow.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Like, just completely, like, bye?
She says, we have a mission. We have to go figure it out.
Wow. How did Terry feel about that?
Pretty tough. She didn't love it. She was very upset.
I imagine so. Okay. This sounds pretty headed in the right direction for a cult.
Mm-hmm. So, the two go off into the country, visiting other New Age groups, starting to try and host their own groups, but nobody was super interested because at this point, they didn't really know what they were doing yet. They hadn't found their mission yet. So they were just kind of wishy-washy. And finally, they ended up like on the Oregon coastline, and they were hiking together where they sat and they realized that they were, are you ready? They had figured it out. They're the foretold witnesses from the book of Revelations. So there's a part in Revelations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna paraphrase because I didn't write it down because I thought I wouldn't want to, but now I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
Where there either is a pair of lanterns or a pair of trees that light things on fire and are martyred and then rise up 3 days after
Mm-hmm.
and are taken up in a cloud by Christ. So that's how it's written in the book of Revelations. Now,
And they believe themselves to be.
Bonnie and Herff believe that they are the two witnesses. They determined that they will lead their followers into the next level or the kingdom of heaven into outer space through the cloud, quote unquote, which they believe to be a UFO. They think that when the Bible was written, they did not have the terminology to call it a UFO, so they called it a cloud. They don't think that this is a spiritual thing. They don't think that their souls are going to be lifted up into a spiritual UFO and taken to heaven.
They think
this is a tangible, physical thing.
aliens are going to roll up and be like, get in, losers.
Yes.
We're going to outer space.
They think that they will become aliens and then go into the spaceship and then drive the spaceship to God. They think that with a strong enough telescope, they could see God in space. They think that heaven is a physical place in space.
Okay.
Cool. That's the very basics. That's the core of it. Okay. So, to their future followers, they would go by a variety of names, but we will be referring to them as the two, or Doe and T. Doe being Marshall / Herff, and T being Bonnie. And yes, it's from Do Re Mi. Something about like Doe being the like next octave up after T, because T was really the mind and he was more the voice. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
But because they love the sound of music is what it is. It was T's favorite movie.
Okay, but I'm glad that you explained that, because I was thinking, how did he become Doe, like a deer?
A female
deer, and she's the cup of tea.
She's T, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we enter phase 1 of our coverage, the early days of the cult. As you questioned, how do people fall for this bizarre concept? I have some context.
Okay.
It's the early 70s, time of unrest socially.
Yes.
We're coming off of the 60s, where people were just generally hippies.
Yes.
Not all people, but these people for sure.
Yes.
And cults tend to emerge in times of unrest socially, where people are trying to find
what? No.
I know. They're trying to find something, anything to hold on to,
what?
You know?
We wouldn't know anything about that in 2024.
Oh, gosh. And I'm going to relate this cult to a conspiracy theory that I have discussed a lot, and that is the moon landing being fake.
Okay.
The reason that so many people these days and in the last, 10 years have thought that the moon landing was faked is because now we know what special effects in a soundstage would look like. We have that context.
Yes.
This time, they have heard way more about UFOs ever Star Trek is popular. This is the era of science fiction.
Yes.
So they are taking something like Christianity that is ingrained in most people from the time that they can go to church and turning it into something that's very current for them.
Okay.
Again, not intentionally. They really, really, really believed this to be true. So that's how people got here.
Okay.
Like, one of the most popular books at this time was a book about how ancient civilizations were built by extraterrestrials. So
yes,
it's very, very current for them. So to simplify how they found things, T and Doe made these flyers, posted them, and began holding meetings all over the west coast of the United States. Right? That's the west coast.
Okay. Yes.
Are we on the west coast? We're the east coast.
Yeah.
Okay. They're all over the west coast of the United States. That whole side of the country.
Savannah is very smart, but has like no geographical understanding.
None. I picked Nicholas up from the airport this morning, and on the way home, I was like, "Oh, I want PDQ for lunch. Let's go grab some." And he's like, "Okay, get off at this exit and take a left and go this way." We got off on the exit. I'm like, "I don't know where I'm going," and he's like, "That's the main road right there." And I was like, "What are you talking about? This sign says to this road." And he says, "It's all the same road." Like, he got so annoyed. He's like, "We live off of this road. I don't understand." I was so turned around.
Yeah. It happens.
I try really hard. So they were all over the West Coast and that side of the country mostly, hosting these meetings at, like churches or motels or anything that they could find like a free conference room to like host things in.
Oh, okay. Like hotel conference rooms.
Yeah.
Okay, when you said motel, I was like, who's just gonna read a flyer and
like in a conference
let's go
room.
to this motel room.
In a conference room. And
especially in the age of serial killers.
I know, yeah. No, and this is going to go on for about 9 months, this like recruitment phase, we'll call it, where they would explain their views and say that they were there to usher the chosen into the next level of heaven through an individual journey of metamorphosis, where their bodies and souls would physically change into alien form before getting on the spaceship and going into the next level. And yeah, they thought they were like caterpillars, gonna go into from caterpillar to butterfly, from human to alien.
I mean, honestly, there's another cult that's been around just as long or longer. That isn't too far off from that. They believe there's aliens inside of them.
The Scientology?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not one I really deep dove into, because Nicholas is really big into, not like he's not a fan of it. He's fascinated by the.
He's really big. Whoa,
Nicholas is a Scientologist. No, he knows a lot about it, and so anytime I start looking into it, he just goes on a rampage, and so
I like whoa bear,
whoa bear. But yeah, it's not far off. It's also not far off, in some capacities from Mormonism. There's lots of parallels. Yeah. So yeah, they would host the classes, and if anybody's interested, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're interested. We're gonna go to this campground in like late August. Find us, come to the next meeting, and if you enjoy it, then you can make a decision then, and like just find us." So they would then say, "Okay, if you need more instructions, go to this post office box, and we'll leave instructions at the post office box." And they would be vague instructions like, "We're going to be at this campground the last week of August," not like a day or where, or just go find them. So basically, they lost a lot of potential members with the lack of communication.
Yeah.
But if they made it to the second meeting, then they would join in. And if they decided that this is what they wanted to do, they would have to drop their whole human kingdom life and find the cult again and join up.
Wow.
Believe it or not, they gained a lot of traction.
I think that gives them it's almost like a test.
Yeah, they were like, if the universe, if you're meant to be a part of it, you'll find us.
Yeah.
And so this is one way that they were a little bit different than other cults. They were very choosy about their members. And if you didn't want to be there and you weren't following the rules, they would assist you in leaving.
That's nice of them.
Yeah. At one point.
Unlike most cults.
Right. And this is the thing. They genuinely, it was a choice all the time. It was either follow the rules or you will leave, but like not in a like follow the rules or we're going to kill you situation.
Yeah.
And like one of their long-term members left a few weeks before the end of the cult. And they were like, okay, well, here's a plane ticket. Here's $600. Here's where you need to go. Like,
wow.
They would buy people bus tickets. They would give them cash to get where they needed to go. Like, they were very much wanting the best for the people around them. And it turned out really well for them in the end that they were kind.
Yeah.
But like I said, they were very choosy. They were very particular. They wanted people who wanted to be there. So, yeah. They went...
Well, color me impressed by a cult. Never thought I'd say that.
I know. There are lots of things about this cult that are kind of impressive on that front.
Okay.
So they went to this convention that was held by somebody else who was trying to run a cult, but he was doing a bad job. And they held some more meetings, and they had around 150 to 200 members or potential members. But this is the thing about the early days of Heaven's Gate. They weren't really ever together in one place at the same time. Like, T and Do would indoctrinate a few helpers, and then they would disperse. And so there were several of these meetings happening in different places. And then finally, one day, T and Do came to this event, and it was a whole thing. We'll come back to that. But for the most part, they were separated around. So it was hard to get a real count on how many members there were at this point. The guess is between 150 to 200.
Okay. And those helpers that were dispersed were supposed to be like continuing, like...
Yeah, they were going out to basically spread the gospel, quote unquote.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a very select few. There was like maybe between 5 and 10 of them that they trusted enough to go off and speak.
Right.
But yeah. And T and Do were very few and far between. They were very rarely seen. They would come by, drop off some rules, say, don't do this, follow this, and then they would be gone again for another few weeks. Like, they would have no idea where they were.
Wow.
Yeah. But things really came to a head in 1975 after a meeting in Walport, Oregon. At this meeting, they drew in 34 new members, which is insane considering that there were around 200 people there.
Yeah.
So that's a really big percentage of people who just like up and left their entire lives after one meeting. Like, from that meeting, they recruited this many people. And if you're wondering what kind of people joined this cult, let me tell you. Like many cults, they were drawing in middle-class, educated individuals with fully fledged lives outside, and they were people who kind of were always drawn to the metaphysical. That was a pretty standard thing. Or who struggled with their religious beliefs within Christianity and never felt like they fit in on Earth. Like, they never settled into communities, or like there were some who were former hippies from the 60s who hadn't really kind of integrated into life yet, and this really spoke to them. But for the most part, we're talking like educated people who were completely capable outside of the cult.
But no matter how educated you are, if you're looking for purpose,
right,
and a place to belong,
right, exactly. And a lot of them were also parents.
Oh,
not all of them, but some of them. And one rule that Do and T had was no children allowed. There are no kids allowed in this cult.
So these people left their kids?
Yes. These people would abandon their children with family and friends, leaving their 10-year-old children, their 13-year-old children, their infants. And many of these children never saw their parents again.
What the hell?
Yeah. Now, that wasn't the case because a lot of people came and went. Like, they would go, they would come back, they would go, they would come back. That wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
But for, like, a lot of them, they never saw their parents again.
Yeah.
That
is your purpose. You chose to have children.
Right. But Do would then tell them, like, well, this is what the disciples were told when Jesus was there, that they would have to fully focus on God and not on their families. And if you have your children here, that's your priority. No longer is it setting aside human connections. And they're prepping for a life of an alien, babe. They can't have any connections to the human beings or to the human world or the human kingdom. So, no kids. Alicia's squinting at me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, there's always something. There's always something. No matter how much I really sat there going, oh, that's nice. It's not forceful. They let you decide. They're choosy. And no matter what, there always comes a point where if I personally got drawn in, there's always a point where I go, no way in hell. I'd be like, okay, deuces.
Right. But again, it was a choice. Like
Yeah, I get it.
Right. If you want to be taken up by the alien, by the cloud, no kids. So there had been some reporting done on the weird UFO group. Like from the beginning, they had kind of been in local papers because they would show up and they would have these weird meetings and then people would go missing, like, 1, 2, even 8 to 10 at a time. But after Walport, 34 people. And they only knew of like really 20 who were from the area. There were others who had been visiting Oregon and seen the flyer and gone. So it was crazy. And then after all of the reporting done from Walport, 2 individuals joined who would completely change the course of Heaven's Gate. Which, by the way, they didn't have a name for themselves. They didn't call themselves Heaven's Gate.
Gotcha.
If anything, they called themselves the class. But even that was like towards the end, they just called themselves like the group. They didn't really call themselves anything. We called them that.
Yeah.
So Robert Balch went to the meeting after he realized, hey, this little flyer is talking about that group that was in Walport.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go. So he goes to this meeting and he leaves and he calls his friend David and he's like, yo, do you want to go undercover in this cult with me? And he was like, I called David because he's always down. Like, I knew he would go. And so he and David decided they were going to go undercover in this cult because he and David were sociologists, or at least sociology grad students.
Gotcha.
And so Robert kept a secret log where he had tons of like scraps of notes and like little notebooks and stuff because obviously they weren't supposed to be doing that, but he was able to. And he said it was sort of easy to go undercover because they weren't supposed to be forging human connection. So even if they were talking, it wasn't like deep and meaningful conversation. And they had a lot of time where nobody was kind of really paying attention.
Well, because they're also only keeping people that are choosing to be there. So they were probably a lot more trusting.
Right.
To like not watch your every move.
Well, that's not true.
Oh.
Because Heaven's Gate would do this thing called a check partner, which is somebody that they would pair you up with, which was they were literally supposed to run every single thing by and do everything together as an accountability partner.
Okay.
But if you don't tell your check partner something, they're not going to know. Like it's...
Yeah.
So he was just not telling his check partner that he was supposed to be, that he was keeping secret logs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he and David were both doing it, but T and Doe would separate people who came together because you're not supposed to have these human connections. So they got separated with this unspoken rule of like, we're going to be back in Montana before Christmas. Like, we going to meet back there.
Right.
Don't have a when or a how, but we're going to do that. And sure enough, they left because, like I said, nobody was keeping them there. Right. And when they got back, they put together all their notes and they published academic papers and things like Psychology Today about their time with Heaven's Gate. And this made the cover story. So unfortunately for the class, things just went mainstream.
Ruh-roh.
Mm-hmm. After things got so public, at one particular meeting where they had probably upwards of 200 people there were some very serious hecklers, and Doe and T were actually the leaders of this meeting. Halfway through the meeting, T stood up and spoke, which was very weird because the general consensus of the two was that T was the one getting the messages from God, and she was kind of the like filter, the communication chain. She would then tell Doe, and Doe would be the mouthpiece.
Mm.
So for her to get up and speak was kind of rare, and she basically just said, we're closed. We're done. Peace. We're dipping. We don't have to put up with this. We're not here to become a mainstream, giant religion. Like, we're here for our purpose. We're done.
Right.
And they left. They looked at some of their followers and said, you made the first cut. And they asked about 15 to 18 of them to leave. But the rest of them, I think there were like 80.
Okay.
80 at the first cut, and then later they eventually whittled down to about 30.
Wow.
They said this is it. And they went kind of underground. I mean, not literally, but just like low profile.
Literally.
Yeah, they started digging holes with a spoon.
Get your pickaxe.
No, they continued to camp, and that's how they lived. They lived a really nomadic life, just hopping between campgrounds for most of the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. We are entering phase 2 of our discussion. The class shall enter phase 2. 1976. T and Do began giving formal lessons and recording these instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Prior to this, they weren't really educating their followers. Like I said, they were really in and out. They would just drop tidbits here and there. But they decided it was time to begin the formal education. And serious training will begin shortly.
All right.
Like I said, moving from campground to campground, they felt like their old families and people from their past human life were following them. They were really paranoid. So they would hop campgrounds a lot. And if anybody came across their campground, they would immediately act like it was just a Bible study group.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you can teach mental illness.
That's a really big discussion about this. Like, what part of it is mental illness?
Well, I mean, just the paranoia.
Well, right. Yeah. That is, yeah, that's totally.
Yeah.
So they distributed a book that they wrote with directions and behavioral guidelines, essentially telling them exactly how to act if they wanted to be accepted as an extraterrestrial in the next level. They had to quite literally strive to be perfect every day, as every single thing that they did was a test of their readiness. They were basically training alien robots. They ran everything by their check partners. Every single thing was told exactly how to do. Part of their questions were like, can you follow directions without doing anything other than exactly what is told to you?
As I said, the thing that draws people into cults is their humanness, the wanting a purpose and belonging. And then they're trying to take all of the humanness out.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. The other thing is that they were also to be sexless. In thought and actions, nothing. It's very human of you. No sex.
I don't know that I believe Do and T have been together all this time.
Oh, they're not romantic. They're just partners.
How does anyone know that?
That's what, I mean, listen, I guess the reality is only T and Do will ever know for sure.
Yeah.
But they just, neither one of them were super interested. Like, T was ready to sign off men entirely. And I think a lot of the sexlessness did come from Do, and he was very unhappy and unresolved with his own sexuality. So I think a lot of that comes from just like, ignore it. Don't talk about it. Don't acknowledge it. It's not there.
Which probably came from a shame that he felt from all of the past.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, they would have to admit to their check partner if they had any sort of sexual thought or desire, and the shame of it in general was enough to kind of keep people from doing it.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it more in part 2, because that's really when it kind of kicks into high gear, but just for now, just keep that in the back of your head too. And people really started to leave when that kind of got serious, and again, like, they've cut off other recruits, so you're just with people who want to be there. And anybody who stayed was really pushed full on into this intense experience and environment of people who were trying to be aliens. Like, shedding all aspects of human nature. So they made money by going to churches and begging and they would say they were testing the churches to see if they were invested with Luciferians, which is what they called demons. They called them Luciferians. Because every cult needs an antagonist, and in this case, it's the Luciferians.
Yes.
So they would go to churches and beg for money or food, or there were a select few of them that would go out and work menial jobs. So the jobs had to be menial. They couldn't be a career. Couldn't have anything that would make you want to stay.
Right.
You know? And the other thing is, a few of their members came from money, and one of them had a trust fund that several of them lived off of for a long time. So for at least the first 10 years of the cult, they were living off of this trust fund and these like scraps of money and food from churches.
Wow.
And finally, he alerted them that it was time for the next step of their training. They were to begin practicing for life on the spacecraft. They reached out to all of their members and said, if you want to join us in this section, this is the very specific list of things that you will need. You will need this tent. You will need a sleeping bag. You will need this many pairs of clothes. You will need this. You will need that, a list. And they would go. They would get their stuff. They would come back. And when they came back, they marked off this campground with sticks and logs. And they were only allowed to go into the marked off areas because this is a spaceship. You can't go outside of the spaceship.
Ah, I see.
And even the walkways were lined out, in the spaceship. And they started wearing identical clothing and getting the same haircut, and they even changed their language. Now, this happens in a lot of cults. They begin using their own terminology. It further ingrains them in their belief system and further isolates them from other people because they don't speak the same way.
Yes.
So if you're wondering how they did this, I'm going to tell you. The kitchen was called the Nutrilab. The laundry area was called the Fiber Lab. The bedrooms were rest chambers. The house itself was the craft, or the little tents areas where the pods were called the sleep area, the sleep pods or whatever. Because eventually they moved into a house, so they called that the craft. But for now at the campground, they're just in these little pods. In each individual pod is their rest chamber. You get it? Their bodies were vehicles.
Oh, okay. Yes.
They were like alien monks.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Okay.
And they changed their names.
Of course they did.
Would you like to know what your name would have been?
Oh, no. They had a system?
There was a system.
Okay.
Your name is Elodie.
Elodie?
Elodie. It's the first syllable of your name or something meaningful, or not meaningful, but part of your life. And the last name, Odie. It's all one word, but it's
That's it.
Yeah.
Everybody was just Odie.
Yeah.
But the first... Okay.
Yeah, the first part. And because it's a diminutive of a word that means little member, small member. Because
Or a cartoon dog.
Yeah. Because when they would go into the next level, their superiors would be older members. They called them the older members. So you are a small member, and then there are the large members.
So you would be
Savodi.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of an emoji this week, please feel free to leave your Heaven's Gate name. And if you can't figure it out, leave a little alien emoji, and I will tell you your Heaven's Gate name. They continue life on their space campground until late 1978, when they moved into homes, because some members got a large inheritance of up to $500,000, and they were renting out homes in nice suburban areas, mansions. Huge. For people who really didn't like human things, they were living in really nice areas. That's all I'm going to say about that. They would have...
Maybe the spaceships are really nice.
Right. They have to have a similar quality of life.
Yes.
Obviously. Oh, you're so smart. You're my older member.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Just call me Elodie.
Just call me. So they would have about 15 to 20 of their members in a home at one time. But they would only allow a certain select few outside of the home. So the neighbors had no idea how many people were actually living there. Because they would only see the same 4 people. So they just thought it's just a group of 4 people living in the house next door. But no, there are 20 people inside. Which is kind of crazy to think about. And they were living in these homes when the Jonestown incident happened in 1979, which is an insane and tragic cult where over 900 people died.
Yes.
It was very different from this cult. Those people were forced to die.
Yeah.
That's not the same situation here. But it was really difficult for them to watch that. I mean, it's hard for anybody, but that's kind of the environment that they were in. And at this point, in 1979, the group had shrunk down to about 30 members, all of which had concerned family at home. One mom, Nancy, created a thing called the Family Network newsletter. This was a newsletter that she put out with the help of other mothers and families, updating them on anything they could find about the group. Last sightings, numbers, if they could spot individual members, basically any sort of proof of life that they could find.
Yeah.
This was a way for them to just kind of make sure that their loved ones were alive because they weren't really speaking regularly, if at all. Right. Some of them did call their parents with their check partners on the same line, but that really started happening again towards the end of the 20-year run of the cult.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the middle now.
Okay.
Jumping from 79 to 1984, Doe and T finally referred to the Family Network newsletter in the classroom or in the videos that they were shooting. And they told their members not to add to it, not to acknowledge it, because that's in your past and this is your right now.
Don't be human.
Don't be human. Mind you, this entire time, T is writing letters to Terry monthly and even talking to her occasionally on the phone.
Of course. That's how it always works.
Right.
The
because
rules don't
it's different
apply to the leader.
Right. Now, in the mid-80s, T was diagnosed with cancer in her eye. She was ill and even showing symptoms, but they never talked about it. She eventually had her eye removed, but after they removed it, they figured out that it had metastasized to her liver. And so, unfortunately, she was on her way to the grave, and she passed away 3 weeks later on June 19th, 1985. And everyone in the group was very upset. Like, this was a pillar of their community.
Yeah, she was supposed to be the connection.
She was supposed to be the connection. She was also supposed to help lead them into the next level, and their vessels weren't supposed to die.
Yep.
They were supposed to have this physical change. And so now T leaves and Doe is stuck having to completely rewrite their theology on his own.
Poor Herff.
Poor Herff. Luckily, nobody was really heavily questioning it. I mean, I'm sure there were some, but they were all really just upset and in grief. And so they elected a few members of the group to go tell T's daughter about her death, which is, again, against everything that they preached. I don't know how they did that, but they went and they talked to Terry. And following the death, Doe was very lost. This was his best friend, and he kind of abandons this part of their theology and says, everybody go home, visit your families. Be human for a little while in wake of her passing. So they did. They went, they visited, and only one person remained with their families. The rest of them returned.
Wow.
They were gone for a couple weeks, and they came back. Almost every single one of them.
Well, I imagine if you've spent that many years invested in something.
Right. They didn't have anything to go back to.
Yeah. Life is different. Your family loves you, but they've had to move on.
Yeah.
And so life is different there. It's not what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you've invested all this time. So
yeah,
a lot of people would dig their heels in and be like, nope, I'm going to see this through.
Mm-hmm. And they were happy. They had a community. And even though they were supposed to be these very unhuman beings,
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of footage of them just honestly being a community.
Yeah.
And joking and laughing. And they would watch Star Trek together, and they would watch movies. And I mean, they were allowed to watch approved TV shows. They couldn't watch anything that had families in it, like no Little House on the Prairie, I think is the example I can think of. I think Last Pod is the one who said that. But they did things. There's videos of them around Christmas time, doing talent shows, and they would sing songs. And I mean, they were still a group. This is their family at this point.
Yeah.
So in the time that those people are gone, Doe eventually reaches out to Terry on his own because he had just sent other people.
Right.
And Terry was kind of peeved because that's not her best friend. My mom's best friend, her life partner, I mean, not romantically, but life partner, didn't even say anything. So he sent her a tape, a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And he admits, he's like, this is awkward, and I'm ashamed that I didn't reach out to you before, but I was so caught up in my own grief, I didn't know how to do it. And he talks about it at the beginning, and then he spends part of the tape just re-explaining their philosophy. And she's like, I know that. I didn't care, but he did do that. And when the members returned, they are given an explanation for T's death and the fact that she didn't change into an alien before their eyes.
Yes.
So his explanation was that her next level consciousness was so strong in her teaching, it burned through her vessel. And it kind of changes their mission a little bit, less of a physical one into more of a spiritual change.
Okay.
Less butterfly, more ghosty kind of situation. The lines were blurred, but they were still headstrong that they were aliens. And after her death, T kind of becomes a saint for the group. She's still Doe's link to the next level. She's still the filter. She's just not physically present.
Yeah.
And he even calls her his heavenly father at some points. Like, she is a saint to them, for lack of a better word. Like, I'm trying to relate it to how we could understand it. But
why would he call her?
I don't know, because he's weird.
Heavenly Father.
Because he's bizarre. Yeah, I mean, they weren't praying to her because they didn't really pray, but they were communicating with her. Like, that was their direct link to above.
I don't know that I don't want to go on a side tangent about like gender and all of that. But
well, that comes into play because they kind of go really androgynous. Like, not in a sense where they eliminated gender, but to the sense of like, well, gender is part of being human and we're aliens and there's no gender as an alien.
Okay.
They were saying that like, as an alien, your reproductive parts are just like parts. So it doesn't matter. And we all look the same. So that's kind of how they mimicked it on Earth. Now, he does say at one point, I feel like I've seen a clip of him being like, I don't know if it was who they were talking about. Well, oh my gosh, why can't I remember his name? The performer, Elton John. They were talking about Elton John. And he was basically saying like, kind of goes androgynous. He's not masculine. He's not feminine. And while we don't agree with that, you get the point of like, not a, like, it was weird. Like, he didn't approve of it, but also that's what we're going to do. They all had like short male sort of haircuts.
Okay.
And like at the end when they find the deceased, they think they're all men.
Okay.
So
that explains it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a strong like gender roles or stance.
Yeah.
Which hence she's our heavenly father kind of thing. It's just really up in the air. It's widely believed that the drastic shift from the metaphysical and more scientific towards a more direct line to Christianity happened right after T passed because of Doe's relationship with Christianity. Remember, his father was a pastor, although he was a Presbyterian pastor, I believe, and I'm pretty sure they don't believe in Revelations, like that whole section of the Bible.
I've never heard that.
Let me make sure. They don't believe in the rapture. They don't believe in like the second coming of Christ. Not the second coming. What is it? The rapture. Yeah. Okay.
I had no idea.
It's the viewpoint that Jesus will take true believers into the air. Oh, that's the definition of the rapture, not the definition. Presbyterians reject some teachings associated with the rapture, such as the idea that it's a secret and that it happens before the final tribulation. They also believe that the Bible's description of Christ's return is straightforward, simple, that it will be visible, personal, and glorious, and less, like, rapture-y. I don't know, but they don't believe in, like, that section of Revelations where he's talking about the lanterns setting things on fire.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you're Presbyterian, explain to us what that means. I don't know what it means. Do you believe in the rapture? Do you not believe in the rapture?
Yeah.
Explain it. I just think that it's different than what he was raised to believe. But anyway.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Things tended to take a more doomsday approach with Doe as the figurehead. And that is where we're going to leave off in part 1.
Oh, okay.
Questions?
That's a cliffhanger.
Yes. Because it's... Yep. gets intense after this. And so things sort of get rapid.
Yeah.
And I felt like this was a good place to cut it off.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I have questions.
That was a lot.
It's a lot.
And if you're listening and you have questions, part 2 will come out next Thursday. So if you have questions between now and then, please let us know. I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't have any. I don't know. I need to process.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot.
But the whole Presbyterian, that's not what they, I mean, like every denomination does have some little weird difference between their beliefs.
I thought it was interesting that like it's such a Christianity based offshoot, but not in the way that he was raised. And again, I could be completely wrong. And somebody who's Presbyterian is going to be like, no, that's stupid. It is right. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, there's a lot to process. We covered a lot. There's a lot because there's a lot of content. They filmed all of these lessons. There's so much information. Their belief system was very complicated and very like tangenty. Like they would just talk for hours. And so there's tons of little like tidbits of information and like lots of events. And so there are things that I cut out. If you're wondering what my main source is for this video, where's the cameras? For this, that's kind of a complicated question because this is a case that I've studied for a long time. The one that I'm going to suggest, HBO has a documentary called Heaven's Gate, The Cult of Cults. It's very well done. It's very good. I recommend it. There's lots of talking heads from former members. You get to kind of see where they're coming from, see where they currently stand.
Yeah.
I thought that they did a great job. If you want more information, that's where I would turn. First, obviously. It's a rabbit hole. You can talk forever about it. There's tons of it.
I was going to say, it's probably been covered a lot.
It has, yeah. But that's going to be the source that I list and talk about the most. And until then, if you would like to be entered in for Sunday's shoutouts, please leave us your Heaven's Gate name or an alien emoji. And again, that's the first syllable of your name with OD at the end. ODY.
ODY. Oh, then it's not the cartoon OD.
Oh.
He's ODIE.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't even get that reference.
From Garfield. He's the dog.
Didn't watch Garfield's. I didn't watch Garfield. I didn't watch SpongeBob. I didn't watch like The Simpsons. I didn't watch Family Guy.
But Garfield?
No, Garfield.
You weren't allowed?
I don't know if it wasn't like allowed or it was just like, I think a little bit before me. Like it was
true.
Like
that's true.
I mean, it was still going on. I was just really young, and like by the time I would have gotten it, it was gone. And
yeah, they had like come back with it in the 90s, I think. But yeah, it's still before your time.
Before me. But yeah, ODY.
Okay, so first syllable, ODY.
Coming from you, from the Burden of Proof Studios, it's Elodie and Savodi. Jamodi. Sayodi. Silvodi. Julodi. Those were names of actual members that I've remembered and memorized over the years.
Oh my gosh.
Devoti. Melody. I think I said Melody already. Mashodi. That one I just made up.
Melody is actually a name, except it's pronounced Melody.
Right. Yeah, no.
But they would pronounce it Melody.
Yeah, and they got to a point where there were too many of them with like the same syllable, so they just did random ones, like random syllables and stuff. And yeah, but you know.
Okay.
Yeah, like we didn't even talk about their diet. Like there's so much we didn't talk about.
Their diet?
Oh yeah, lots of like very specific foods that would help them, and like we didn't talk about the like vibrational frequencies. There's so much information.
Yeah, well, anything kind of new agey talks about
the vibes,
vibrations, frequencies.
Yeah, that was the excuse that they gave for not watching like Little House on the Prairie. Was like it doesn't vibrate on the right frequencies as the next level.
Excuse me, paw?
That's got a family in it. They can't risk it.
I wanted so badly for Michael Landon to be my father when I was little.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that draws us to a close today. Thank you guys for sticking around through that. And we hope that you're interested enough for next week.
Well, good job. This is crazy.
Thank you for indulging me. This is really fun for me.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Elodie out.
Thanks for listening, guys. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Burden of Proof Pod and email us at burdenofproofpod@gmail.com.